So in this video, I want to talk to you guys about how we, between all of the clients right now that we manage in our agency, we're spending about $300,000 per month on paid advertising spend just on Meta alone for just one account. So I'll just give you quick proof of that. So as you can see here, just for the month of September, we spent 317 grand. And then in the last 30 days, we spent 240 grand. So we're a little bit scaling down, but still we average, we're going to do about $10,000, $12,000 per day just on Facebook. That's not including the LinkedIn ads, the Google ads, the pay-per-click ads that we manage. So without further ado, I want to get into this document here because I basically share everything that I have learned throughout my journey on how you're able to scale paid advertising. And a lot of times it actually has nothing to do with the advertising account itself. 90% of the work comes in pre-planning. You only need to really do that last 10% in the ad account. Roger Federer, one of the best tennis players of all time, he always said that, it doesn't really matter what you do on match day. Like it matters what you did that 6 months leading up to. Like it's already decided when you come up to that point, how you did your fitness, your regimen, your routine leading up to that. So without further ado, let's kind of go through all that. Let's talk about what that prep looks like prior to going into the ad account. Everything that I list out here is sequential, meaning they all feed into each other. And I'm starting at the top with, having a great offer, and I'll define that. And then we're going to kind of finish with all the way down to customer retention, which is a big factor in determining how much you'll be able to spend profitably. Okay. So the first thing that I look for, if I'm going to scale a paid advertising account, it has to be a large TAM, a total addressable market. And the way that I kind of further define the quality of the opportunity is, how big is the marketplace? What's the gross profit of the total amount of units that can be sold? And then you can define that as like operational efficiency. So if it's going to be not very profitable, how leverageable is the deliverable that we're going after for this market? And then the last piece, which everybody misses, is what is the competitive dynamics of the market? If you read Blue Ocean's strategy, basically if you come in and do something that your competitor is already doing, you've now split that total addressable market. So ideally, what you're looking for is you want to try and find a market that is super underserved. There's not a lot of entrenched competitors. It's massive and it's incredibly profit, meaning the value that they pay versus the work relative to what you need to deliver on that. There's a big discrepancy there. So it needs to be a blue ocean, okay? Guarantees and risk reversals, those are kind of overused and abused nowadays. So I don't really think this is a unique way of differentiating yourself, in my personal opinion. I think you need to kind of really look towards industries and platforms that aren't being utilized. The next thing that matters a lot after you think about your offer is you want to have really good branding, okay? So people are going to see your ad, they're going to look at your website, they're going to look at your organic profiles and your social platforms, and then they're going to make a decision whether to buy, okay? So they're going to go to ad, then they're going to start doing their own research, and then they're going to make a decision to buy. Now, the problem is your branding, it's very hard to quantify, it's very hard to measure. It's this force that's happening in the background. It's either helping you or it's working against you, okay? So, we personally, we don't actually grow through organic. If you post something organic, you're limited to the reach. What I like to do is I just have my bases covered. Okay, I have a nice profile, I have a nice brand, I have all my social media platforms ready to go, looking really nice. Then I start running ads. The benefit of running ads is that the reach is guaranteed. With organic, you have these waxing and weaning demands on your traffic and your amount of impressions. So it's very hard to staff appropriately a sales team when you have waxing and weaning demands. Okay, but with the benefit of paid ads, you can say this salesperson, we know that for a fact he's going to get 400 sales calls over the next 3 months or something like that, because we know our cost per call is X and we're going to spend X amount divided by our cost per call to know he gets X amount of opportunities. You know your cost per lead, you know your cost per call, you know your show up rate, you know he's getting that amount of opportunities. And then you're going to get sales team that's fully bought in and fully believing on the mission. In my experience, if you have a bunch of part-time sales reps, they're going to start and they're not able to make a full-time income because maybe you made a post, you got a big blow up, he had all these kind of inbound inquiries, but then you waited 2 or 3 months and the next couple of videos didn't really pick up. He'll kind of go and find another way to occupy himself elsewhere at a different company, okay? And there's this beautiful thing that happens when you just focus on one thing. You just kind of get into a flow. People aren't very effective when they're switching back and forth between 2 offers. So you want to have great branding, okay, and have a nice presence online that's going to nurture people, but it's not for the purpose of lead generation, okay? That's why we leverage paid ads. We know a repeatable system. We're going to get people in front of our sales team for this cost. We're going to spend this amount, and all the good branding is going to nurture them along the way. So having a good website, organics, and reviews, okay? Okay, now that you've picked a great offer, you've picked a great opportunity that's not super competitive, you have good branding or organics, now you're ready to start running paid ads. When you're running paid ads, it's a funnel, okay? So every stage, there's marginally less people at every stage. So what you want to do is you want to start focusing on the thing that affects the widest and largest group of people. So what is that? It is specifically the creative, okay? Now, if you break up the creative bucket that's still the top of the funnel, 95% of people are only going to see the hook of that creative. And if you break up the hook even more, people are going to register the visuals much faster than the verbals, okay? I'm going to say that again. Human brains register something that is visual 2,000 times faster than something that's verbal, okay? So your spokesperson, if they just look off, they're in a weird environment, the environment doesn't really make sense as to what they're talking about. Like, you know, somebody sent me an ad creative today. It was like of a person in a fancy suit, but they were selling to single family home investors, or kind of like blue collar. It didn't really make sense because my spokesperson that I hired, he was filming offers that we send to private equity people that we have a more corporate feel. They're wearing a suit and things like that. And he filmed it in the same location as one of our real estate clients that's selling something for single family home investors. And I told him, no, the background has to match. Okay, if you're selling a roofing person, like try and be on the back of a roof. If you're selling to accountants, try and look like an accountant. Okay, you'll naturally get more rapport. So let's go back to this funnel analogy. Basically, your creative is going to affect the most people. So iterating on this has a much bigger impact on the overall campaign. Okay, so when you're testing those creatives, you want to test different visual hooks. So it's different spokespeople, different locations. Okay, you can try different props. Okay, it works really, really well if you hold something like at the beginning of your video. Okay, that can make a really big impact. Something that's relevant, not like a dirty glass of water like I'm holding here. It's not dirty, it's protein powder. But anyway, so you want to start with that visual hook. So typically if I'm launching a new company, I'm going to start with 50 creatives. Okay, I'm going to have 3 spokespeople, 3 locations, and we're going to try and make those ads as different as humanly possible. We're going to test different benefits, different offers. We want macro, very, very different ads filmed by very different spokespeople that look different, that talk different, different locations, make them as unique as humanly possible. Okay. Then we're going to start, of those like 50 advertisements that we make, let's say it's in 4 different, like distinctly different visual hooks. Okay. I'm also within that filming session, within that visual hook. So whether it's a spokesperson or a location change, we're going to test the most different, unique messaging that we possibly can. So it could be like, different guarantees, different offers, hitting on different benefits, highlighting different aspects of our product, things like that. Most people get it wrong when they're starting off. You want to test wildly different things because you're not even close. Okay, once you have something that's really good, then you start doing micro iterations. But people get that background. Start with macro iterations and then move to micro iterations. If you're profitable, if your funnel's not fucking profitable, don't spend all your time split testing the button color. That's something that can move the needle 1 or 2%. Okay, and it's not worth you investing that time if you're only doing 10 grand a month or 30 grand a month. Because 1% of 3 grand, it's like $200 or $300. You should be testing radically different offer. The offer is the main thing. The benefits, the hook, the creative, these things matter way more. Okay, so you need to be testing wildly different offers. You need to be testing wildly different benefits. I mean, creatives are it's a little bit of both because your creatives can highlight different aspects of the offer. But your goal is, if you're just starting out and you're trying to get proof of concept, do everything wildly different in the beginning, okay? Then once you have something working, it's like a winning creative, okay? I still will try a couple things that are very different and unique, but then I'm going to start moving into micro iterations, okay? So for instance, we work with a lot of private equity companies and we help them with deal flow, paid advertisements, okay? I did try, for when I was launching that business, I tried a lot of capital raising ads, seeing if the marketplace really wanted help raising capital and getting in front of all institutional high net worth investors. Turns out people were really, really interested in deal flow. Then once I found out that deal flow was kind of a resonance with, it really resonated with my marketplace, then I started trying doing different deal flow advertisements, different deal flow guarantees. I tried different spokespeople talking about the deal flow thing. And then I found out that the marketplace really wanted LinkedIn advertisements as that unique method towards helping them get deal flow advertisements. So I started to get very kind of specific on, I knew exactly, what my ideal avatar was wanting, okay? And I knew exactly what they wanted most, what their biggest pain point was, the unique mechanism that resonated with them. I knew the spokesperson, I knew the location, all these kind of micro iterations, okay? And then I just started, I just keep refining that, okay? Now, once you have remember, you always start top down. Everybody who's a performance marketer who knows what they're doing, you always start top down. So it's your visual hook, brain registers that faster, verbal hook. Then you have the body of the ad, so you can test different offers, guarantees, price points, payment structures, things like that. And then you can test different CTAs. Because remember, people are going to drop off. Not a lot of people are going to see this. Don't iterate this bullshit. Iterate stuff that's at the top that's going to affect more people, that's going to move the needle way more. This matters way more. Don't even move on to this stuff if you don't have this stuff. And don't even move on to this great creative stuff until you have this stuff figured out, okay? And then when you're at the CTA, you can try different lead magnets, okay? So different lead magnets. So for instance, you could say, look, if you're interested at all, book a free demo below. That could be a CTA that you could try. Or you could say, if you're interested in more, what we'll do is we will conduct a free portfolio analysis on your existing investment portfolio. We'll make free suggestions. We'll give you our exact investment blueprint and philosophy specifically tailored to you. You get that all for free. All you need to do is fill out your information below. It's still going to result in the same thing. It's going to result in sales calls for the prospect, but there might be a different lead magnet or a different freebie giveaway that you can give in your messaging that moves the needle and gets you some more opt-ins, okay? And what you can do is, if you want to, you can get a little bit robotic with all this, in that you can film different hooks, you can film different bodies, and you can film different CTAs at the end, and then cut and paste all those. So you can be like, hooks 1 through 10, bodies 1 through 5, CTAs 1 through 20. And then you optimize hook, then optimize body, then optimize CTA. Does that make sense? Sometimes it can look a little bit robotic if you have a good editor and he's putting in B-reel. I actually recommend it. I think that's a great strategy. Next thing, okay? So once you have these great creatives, remember, you want to test about 50 to start. That's typically what I do if I'm launching a business. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to go broad targeting on Facebook. And I have here a little diagram. The Facebook algorithm is way more powerful than the Google Ads algorithm, and the Google Ads algorithm is more powerful than the LinkedIn Ads algorithm. Facebook it's so popular because it's so user-friendly. The algorithm does a lot of the work for you. In fact, most of really what you're doing when you're kind of media buying and you're in the ads manager, a lot of times you're actually making it worse, not better. So what I'm typically doing, it sounds very minimalistic and boring, but again, we did all of our work here, all this hard work, so that we're not going to do a lot in the ads manager, okay? I spend a ton of time writing copy, different hooks. I spend 90% of my time thinking through the visuals, thinking through the spokesperson, making sure the ad looks really, really amazingly good, and I only spend 5-10% of my time bidding. So because I start with broad targeting, I have a couple clients that actually performed better. We launched a lookalike audience. They had a big buyers list of 5,000-10,000 customers that had spent more than 10 grand with them. And sometimes in some instances that does make sense. Start with the lookalike on Facebook. But if you can crack broad targeting, it typically scales better. Okay, sometimes the lookalike, you might get better results initially, but it burns out and it fizzles a little bit faster. If you can give Facebook that freedom to target on its own in the beginning, it's then easier. It's easier for it to find people later on, in my personal opinion. Okay, and very rarely on Facebook as a platform is your targeting actually a constraint. Okay, it's usually you messed up one of these three things. Okay. All right. So so broad targeting, and then what you're going to want to do is you're going to take 50 of those unique creatives, put them in a CBO campaign, and just have automated bidding. A CBO campaign means campaign budget level optimization. So if your total advertising budget is $1,000 a day or $500 a day. By the way, if you're new and you're just starting out, you can get a proof of concept on Facebook ads for as little as $100 a day. In local markets, like local contractors, we used to spend $50 to $75 a day. Works just fine, okay? But if you're a little bit bigger, let's just say your total daily advertising budget is $1,000 a day. Okay, in the past, what we had to do when Facebook's algorithm was not as good, this wasn't always the case, by the way. In 2016, I'd be talking to you a completely different way. But let's say your daily advertising budget is $1,000 today, and you had to advertise on Facebook. I would tell you to Put the $1,000 in the campaign and then put one ad set, put all of your great creatives in that main ad set, okay? In the past, what I would tell you to do is you would have ad set budget level optimization, ABO. And instead of, like when you're doing the CBO, you're giving Facebook discretion. You're saying, I have $1,000 to spend it however you want. You can spend $999 on just this one ad, like 49 of 50 ad creative, or you can spend them all even Steven. You can blend it out evenly. You're going to let Facebook kind of figure it out, okay? With ABO, you're forcing, and you're saying, Facebook, I don't trust you, bro. Okay, you've spent all my money, I haven't got a result. I want you to spend evenly. I got 10 ads, spend $100 a day on each. And Facebook will evenly spend it each, and then you as the media buyer make a decision. My cost per lead on ad 2 was really good. I'm gonna spend more money on that one. That's what we used to do in 2016. Nowadays, in 2017, Facebook is going to, if you use a CBO campaign structure, you upload those 50 ads, Facebook is going to come to you and it's going to say very quickly, it's going to look at ad number 27 and it's going to be like, holy crap, people are clicking on this, they're engaging with it. It has all these early leading indicators of success. Then it's going to look at the downstream kind of lagging indicators like cost per lead, frequency. That's another really big component on the ads manager. And it's going to slowly start allocating all the spend towards that winning ad much faster than you would be able to identify that pattern. It's going to start cutting spend on ads that are not performing well, okay? Over a period of about 4 to 5 days, if you give Facebook that discretion, there's going to be about 10 or 20% of those ads that get 90% of the budget. The rest of the ads are going to be used as nice little kind of retargeting ads to hit them from different angles, different pain points. But I no longer think it's smart for you guys to force Facebook with an ABO spend and say, I'm the $100 a day analogy that I gave you to have force it to spend. You don't need to do that anymore. Just tell them your total budget and it will find the winner for you. And then instead of saying like, oh, this had a really good cost per lead, I'm going to force Facebook to spend more on that. Notice what Facebook spent money on and say, that is a good ad. Because sometimes one particular ad will have a good cost per lead, but at a low scale. Facebook is testing what ad is going to perform well at scale. Does that make sense? So even let's say one ad spent all of the, like 90% of the budget and the cost per lead is $37. But there's one ad that spent $5 and got like a $4 cost per lead. You're like, in theory, I should just spend more on that ad and my cost per lead would be $4. No, it's not real. That's not really how it works. What you want to look at is you want to look at the blended cost per lead of the entire campaign and scale up the whole campaign, okay? Now, here's where this gets really, really interesting. Facebook is going to try and find out how much weight every ad can handle. Different ads are going to appeal to different people, okay? Different ads are going to carry part of the weight. We talked about here, you want to have different benefits, different spokespeople. The reason we're able to scale to $12,000 a day is because we hit on different pain points and we capture different parts of the market segment. We have female spokespeople that capture different parts of the market segment. So by using this campaign budget level optimization, we're basically allowing Facebook to be very flexible. We're saying, Facebook, here's all these great ads I made for you. Use them however you want. Facebook might say, you know what, Sam, this guy can carry most of the weight, and this ad right here is going to get served more impressions to women. It does really well with women, and then this ad is going to do really well with this benefit. It's that advanced now, okay? Facebook is so different from other platforms. Like Facebook, people spend 7 hours a day on it. All day, they're clicking, buying, sending that data back to platform. It's so sophisticated. It's the most mature advertising platform there is. Okay, there's very little barrier to entry. It's not much of a blue ocean anymore. That's why I'm really bullish on other platforms like LinkedIn ads, for instance, right now. But if I'm scaling Facebook specifically, I want to give it that flexibility. Let it carry its weight. Okay, one of my main mentors right now, he says, Sam, you want to imagine your advertising account. He would show me this image of like Navy SEALs carrying a life raft into a cold ocean. And every Navy SEAL wasn't evenly holding an equal amount of weight on the Navy SEAL, but they were all doing their part. There would be one kind of big bulk guy carrying 80% of it, then a couple of little guys that just had a little hand on it. Okay, but they're all kind of carrying some part of the greater whole. Don't force them to spend all the ads to spend evenly, okay? So you're just gonna have one campaign per business objective. This is a little bit controversial. I do run some other campaigns now, but for the most part, you can do pretty well with one campaign per business objective. Notice what gets good spend. And then you're gonna wanna scale the whole campaign as a whole plus or minus 20% a day if you're within KPI, okay? Now test this I encourage you to test this for yourself. Unfortunately, I think you're gonna waste a lot of money. But typically what you'll find is if you duplicate the same campaign, one ad set budget level optimization, one CBO, you force the ABO to spend all evenly, let's even be more aggressive. Let's say that you did your CBO thing and one of the ads got 80% of the spend, but there's one little ad that's got like 10% of the spend, but it actually had a lower cost per lead than the main ad set. Take that main ad and for that ad that had the lower cost per lead, make it spend the full total budget that you would have in the CBO. I bet a lot of money on this, your cost per lead is going to be higher than the blended cost per lead of that entire CBO campaign. Does that make sense, you guys? Like you really have to be looking at your blended cost per lead, okay? CBO basically makes all the ad sets, all of them work together on a team. ABO, you're kind of forcing them to kind of do their own thing. That is not how the algorithm works anymore, in my opinion. Another thing to notice, guys, if your top spending ad in that CBO campaign has a very low frequency, you will likely be able to spend more money, okay, and have success in doing that. Because remember that one, like if the frequency starts to get above 1.5, 1.9, 2.0, that's like go back to that raft analogy with a Navy SEAL holding it. That's like your biggest buff guy. Remember, it's the ad that's carrying most of the spend. He's getting fatigued if it's like a high frequency, okay? So if you scale the spend, now his frequency might go higher and his cost per lead might get out of whack, okay? If my frequency is below 1.8, 1.7 on that top spending ad, I know I'm probably good. There's a high likelihood that I'm going to scale 10, 20% a day, okay? If I'm struggling and I keep trying to scale, my cost per lead rises as I scale, then you can do a lot of things, but typically what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try and insert more creatives. So I'm gonna basically say, hey, CBO campaign, here's more incredible creatives, more guys on that life raft to help you carry the weight, because I'm gonna put a whole bunch of weight on this life raft by increasing the spend. So I hope this analogy is making sense for you guys, but that's the way you wanna be thinking about it, okay? Once I've optimized this, remember, we're going top down, everybody, right? We start with our offer, branding, creative, broad targeting, your creative. Now we got to talk about our landing page conversion rate and our funnel, okay? One of my biggest mentors in internet marketing, he said, Sam, what is going to dictate your landing page's conversion rate more than landing pages, the ad that they saw prior to coming to that page? Okay, that's very fucking important. I used to have a horrible ad, and I used to be split testing my landing page, thinking that I could. No, if people see a great ad they like a lot, they'll just scan your landing page, the headline, and then they'll fill out their contact information if the ad was good. Okay, and remember, top of the funnel, more people are being affected by the ad than they are the landing page. Okay, so focus on the creative first. Stop optimizing your landing page when you have really, really bad ads. You really just want to play defense, in my opinion, with a landing page. Like you really just want to have a landing page that's like good, solid, just not fucking it up, basically. The ad, you need to be on offense. You need to be testing a ton of stuff, but you just want to have a solid landing page, okay, that looks nice, looks professional. Have the page load rather quickly, okay? Also, once you start finding messaging that's resonating with the ad, match that and mirror that on the landing page. Does that make sense? Like Alex Becker, he has this concept. It's called Find Their Heart of Hearts Promise. So remember when I had that offer for private equity firms, I was saying, do you guys want help with venture capital? Do you guys want help with deal flow? Do you guys want help with institutional lead generation? Do you guys want help with LinkedIn ads? Do you want more followers on your LinkedIn? You always want to be building your products with market feedback in mind. People do it backwards. I do the opposite. I throw out completely, wildly different offers to different avatars. That's another thing that I'm testing. And then once I start out, you know that you have a hit. You can test product market fit using marketing, because you're going to see it in wildly different cost per leads. The offer has the biggest impact on the campaign's overall performance, not all this other marketing stuff, guys. If you've ever read like Alex Hormozi, $100 million offers, same funnel, same everything. One was a 0.5 return on ad spend, meaning he was spending $1,000 a day, making $500 back. He just changed the offer to a pay per appointment model which was very new and revolutionary at the time when people were used to paying these big bloated retainers towards agencies that wouldn't perform. He just changed it to a pay per performance model. And he went to 11-to-1 return on advertising spend within a 30-day return on advertising spend. So I'm very lucid. I'm very flexible with what I'm going to sell to the marketplace, you guys. Like I'm putting out different things, and then based on the feedback, I'll make a pivot on the dime. I will either partner with somebody or find the skill set to serve what that market really wants. It's very hard. Like they say a lot in a lot of marketing books, they talk about you can't create desire from marketplace, but you can ignite what is already there. And most people are selling stuff that people don't really want, or it's selling something that they're just overserved, like they're full. Like, dude, I already have enough marketing agencies. So we had to find a way to differentiate ourselves. The nice thing about marketing, though, is that once you learn the skill set of marketing and sales, it can be applied to a wider array of different industries. So you can be kind of malleable. You can throw out wildly different offers, try and find that outlier very, very quickly, and then micro-iterate from there, instead of micro-iterating something that's nowhere or even near close. So make the main thing, but once you find that, you find like they really want deal flow, this type of avatar wants deal flow. Great. Now make the rest of your funnel match that messaging. Mention it on the sales calls, bunch of stuff. Big thing that I've seen a lot recently is people really want LinkedIn ads. People really, really want LinkedIn ads, okay? Because they recognize it as this new, unique corporate platform that very few people have cracked. Now, this is a video about Facebook ads and Meta ads. We'll have a different video about LinkedIn ads. LinkedIn ads ignore a lot of what, some of this stuff is ironclad regardless of the platform, but this is like, now we're getting into Facebook specific stuff. Okay, you do not want to be doing broad targeting on LinkedIn. You'll lose all your money in 3 seconds. Okay, all right, let's keep going. Focus on your creative first. Okay, match the messaging that you find that you refined in this kind of messaging testing that you do in the creative section. And then what you want to start playing with specifically after that is the friction and the required fields. Most of my clients are lead generation. I don't do e-commerce. I do one low ticket offer right now where we spend a lot of money on it. But most of the clients that we work with want sales calls. Okay. And so a really, really, really important variable is your amount of friction. Okay. If you add more required fields, more questionnaires, more open-ended questions, your lead costs will go up. Sometimes that will also, that'll make your return on ad spend higher. Like in other words, it justifies like forcing them to ask those questions. It's justified because it leads to higher quality, more intent leads. And remember, Facebook it's a platform that does whatever you tell it to do. It'll optimize towards whatever you want. If you make a funnel that is very frictionless, it'll optimize towards very frictionless leads. And the argument, for a lot of marketers that add more friction, more required fields, is I want people who are serious. I want people that have more intent. And so you're telling Facebook to find more people like this, okay? So I was working with a business recently. They were doing about $2.5 million a year. And they found out through analyzing their entire customer database, like we instructed them to, their best customers were all spending more than $100,000 or more generating more than $100,000 per year in gross commission income, okay? And what they were doing, what I saw their other marketer was doing, is they had a funnel where they asked them their gross commission income on the landing page. It was like 0 to 50 GCI, 50 to 100 grand a year in GCI. And then it was past that threshold, it was $100,000 a year in GCI and then plus. But the problem was you don't want to count those leads as a conversion event if they're doing less than 100 grand. The pixel was still firing. The pixel is the event on the landing page. You're telling Facebook, you did a good job, when Facebook didn't do a good job, because you want to be optimizing towards the right thing as opposed to just the cheapest thing. That's a really big distinction between e-commerce and lead generation. Is e-commerce, a purchase is a purchase. Who gives a shit? Whatever's the lowest cost per purchase, CPA, optimize towards that, baby. Because a purchase is a purpose, it's dollars in. Lead gen, total different beast, okay? Not all leads are created equally, not even close. So you want to be optimizing towards the right thing. So what I ask you specifically is, when you're starting with your funnel, typically you want to start with a very frictionless application. in some instances, the most frictionless would be just name, phone number, email address. Don't just do name, email address, because you get a big lift by outbound dialing prospective leads. Big mistake people make is they only dial leads that book calls. They say, I'm not going to call people unless they book a call, unless they go through my application page. Terrible way to think about things, okay? You will drive down your cost per lead, your cost per call rather, significantly. If you add a phone number, it's a little bit of friction, but you'll get it's like catching somebody. You'll get so many disproportionate more phone calls than you would have otherwise if you just would have forced them to schedule on that next page, okay? Like I like to think of getting that phone number as it's like catching them. It's like now they have to make a decision. Like they either change their phone number, block me, or they answer my phone call, okay? And my sales guys are pretty good. Like if we get your phone number, we're going to call you 5 or 10 times. We're going to call you from an area code that matches your phone number so you think it's local. 80% of the time you're going to pick up the phone, and my guys are pretty good at reminding you what you filled out, asking you why you're interested, and selling you on why you should be showing up to that phone call. So you're converting so many more people that dropped off at that stage of the funnel. But what I will say is if you're selling to a B2B audience and you have a very specific revenue numerical question that determines like what is a qualified lead for you, ask that question and screen those people out. But if you're just starting and you're trying to get proof of concept, don't add so many required fields because people are going to drop off over that stage of the field, and you might be disqualifying an audience or an offer or messaging that otherwise might work. You can always tighten things up and add more fields. It's hard to go backwards because if you didn't get a lead from that initial audience, you might never bid or try and market towards that existing audience again. Does that make sense? So start very frictionless. Let's just say your cost per lead is $20. 1 in 5 are turning into a phone call. It's a $100 cost per call. What you can then do is you can add a little bit of friction. You can add a bit of friction, so go from $20 cost per lead to make a $50 cost per lead, and see if you can get your lead to call rate from 20% to up as high as 40, 50%. Okay, if you can, in theory, pay $50 for that same lead, but then 50% are showing up for a phone call, that's an amazing thing. The reason for that is now your sales team has so many more leads to deal with. They have, what is that? That's 2.5 times less leads that they have to deal with, so you can scale way more, okay? And they're just gonna be happier because the leads are gonna be higher quality, okay? But oftentimes what happens is you have the highest throughput, you have the highest return on advertising spend if you have a very frictionless funnel, but it turns into a lot of work. Okay, so you kind of want to strike this very fine balance with cold traffic where you start very frictionless. I would start with a lead form with maybe 1 or 2 qualifying questions max. And then after that point, you can choose to add more friction than that, okay? So in order of importance, I would say the creative is most important, then the friction, then the headline, then everything above the fold on the landing page. Once you have a really good landing page, code that baby into pure HTML so the page load speed is really fast, and then you can start focusing on below the fold. Most people, they iterate on things that they're focusing on things that are small needle movers. They're majoring in minor things. Below the fold is not your concern. I've seen people have all this shit fucked up, and they're still split testing like 50 elements down their landing page. Like, it's stupid. At $100 per day, if you're doing something, let's say something below the fold is a needle mover of like 1 or 3%, okay? You're now working all day to squabble over like a $1 to $3 a day difference. Does that mean? And that's not even statistically significant. It's so subtle, it's not even statistically significant. Now, what I will say, if you're sending 1 million page visits to a page every day, it might actually make sense because if this only improves at 4%, you're sending 1 million, that might be, 40,000 more conversions a day, or whatever the math of 4% on 1 million. I think it's 40,000. So you basically, if you're still in proof of concept phase, you're at low scale, focus on this stuff, okay? Macro iterations, then micro iterations, okay? And once you have something that's working, the opposite is also true. I've seen people that have something really working, and then they don't double down on that. They go back to tinkering. because business is very painful, and your brain will tell you to go around the solution instead of continuing to fight towards it. But I'm telling you, going from 0 to 1 at proof of concept, like getting your first 2.5 or 3.5 return on advertising spend, is harder than scaling from $20,000 a month to $200,000 a month. I swear to God. Okay. The next big bottleneck that a lot of people hit is hiring sales talent. Okay, that's pretty freaking hard, of cloning your sales abilities. But getting all this stuff is really hard. So if you have something that's working, guys, focus on micro iterations. Okay. Okay, now you have all this stuff here. It's going to be really simple, guys. You're going to keep pumping great creatives into your main CBO campaign, and you're going to scale plus or minus 20% every day if you're within KPI. If you notice that frequency starts to get high, try and scale it, but your cost per lead is probably going to go up, which means you need to put more quality creatives in the CBO. Okay. Another thing is your sales team. That's going to have a really big impact on how much you're able to scale. Basically, when you're scaling, Facebook starts by serving you low-hanging fruit traffic. If you're spending $100 a day, you can get a 10 or 15x return on advertising spend, spending $100 a day. You can't get that at $4,000, $10,000 a day on paid ads. The reason for that is and the reason why this platform of Facebook is so amazing for beginners, it's so democratized, is it's fractionalized. Old school advertising, you had to buy a slot on television. It wasn't fractionalized. It was very expensive. There was a big barrier to entry. You can buy just a little fraction, but it's also the second reason is Facebook's going to start by giving you your best traffic that has the highest affinity towards a conversion, because remember, they have 50,000 data points per user. And then as you scale, it's going to get to people that are colder and have less affinity and less likelihood, according to the algorithm, to convert. Because hopefully you're feeding those conversion events from your sales team back to the platform, and you're telling Facebook, hey, this lead you sent me, it freaking bought. So would you do me a favor and please give me more people like that? Okay, so you want to be sending that stuff back. Most people, when they're scaling, they're trying to fight against doing all this shit wrong. They're trying to scale through media buying, through dicking around in the advertising account like you're a dork. Okay, I think people that spend all day talking about cost caps and this new bidding strategy and all this stuff in here, no. Okay, the reason you can't scale is because your ad sucks, your offer sucks, your positioning, your place in the marketplace sucks. Okay, it's not because you didn't do the right targeting on Facebook. Facebook does all that stuff for you. Fundamentally, if you're putting your ad in front of, you're pretty sure it's the right audience, and still not converting, something else is wrong. So the big thing that you want to understand is try and scale through conversion rate optimization. Do not scale through media buying. In other words, make the ad better, higher click-through rate, make the landing page convert better, make the page load speed better, make the lead to call rate and the appointment setters more efficient. Okay, make the close rate higher by drilling your sales reps. Do not think that if you raise the budget 10%, or if you duplicate the campaign instead of raising the budget, that you are somehow going to out-trick Facebook. No, you're putting ads in front of people. Okay, it's not. You can't get around it. In the past, I could see there was a case for that. Like in the past, we used to try really fancy bidding techniques like cost caps and manual bidding and stuff to keep our costs out of whack when we were scaling. But it's not the case anymore, guys. Just scale the main CBO campaign plus or minus 20% a day. If your ad's good, it'll scale. If your ad sucks, it will not scale, and your frequency is going to get all out of whack and super high. Try and keep making your ads better, okay? Sales team, okay? You'll notice your show rates start to get worse as you scale faster to cold traffic, because remember, they have less affinity. So you need to start working on your connection rate. So what percentage of your leads pick up the phone? Do you have a CRM and a dialer where people are picking up the phone? Okay, that's a really big thing. What's your cost per call? What's your offer? What's your show up rate? What's your close rate? My biggest advice to you on your sales team side of ththings, just track these main metrics. Nobody knows their numbers. One of my favorite books is, who's that book? Lorenzo Fertitta. He has Shut Up and Listen. Okay, and he says nobody knows their number. Now, he was talking about that in an accounting standpoint. I see this in an advertising perspective. People don't know their customer acquisition numbers. They don't know their cost per call. They don't know how much they spend. They don't know how many offers that they made. The offer rate is once somebody shows up at the call, you really want to only offer people that are your ideal customer. We can talk about that, but usually if you offer something that's not your ideal customer, it eats up a lot of operational drag and it takes you away from selling and acquiring more customers. It's not worth it. So you want to track all these and then focus on your constraint. Very rare I see somebody that knows their numbers and doesn't solve the constraint. It's most of the time it's people don't even take the time to think what my constraint is and fix it. Or what they'll do is they'll group the whole system and they'll say paid ads don't work for me. It just means that paid ads, one part of paid ads didn't work for you, okay? It could be your close rate, or it could be your offer rate, it could be your show up rate. There's a playbook, and book a call below if you want us to get our opinion on what we think the biggest constraint is in your business. But there's a playbook to fix all these guys. If you come to a coach with a very specific solvable problem, like my show up rate sucks, he can help you. But people aren't clear thinkers, in my opinion. They're just, Facebook ads don't work for me. All right, you're this unique special snowflake. There's 1,500 people in your niche running paid ads. Yeah, it'll never work for you, okay? I'm obviously being sarcastic, but this is how people think. It really frustrates me, okay? The last thing is customer retention. That's how we're able to scale, okay? Alex Hormozi's talked a lot about this, but your cost to acquire a customer, it can only go so low, okay? Because there's just this barrier of trust that you have to cross with somebody that's new. But your lifetime value and how good your thing is and how long you can keep them, that can go up forever. Apple doesn't lose people ever. Okay, all the biggest businesses are built on LTV. It's not driving down cost per acquisition. Okay, so how do you be more specific and scientific about your retention? Specifically, what we do is we help a lot of our clients set up advanced CRM systems, and after somebody purchases, we'll send out NPS, Net Promoter Score questionnaires. And that NPS, I'm not going to explain it too much in this video here, but basically the gist of it is you ask people on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to refer this to somebody else? People that are 7 to 8 are typically neutral. They're not going to help you. They're not going to hurt you. People that are 0 to 6 are typically going to detract away from your business. People that are 9 to 10 are going to promote your business, okay? Now, the reason it's called Net Promoter Score is these promoters and these detractors cancel each other out. So what is the net? Now, in theory, if you have more net promoters, that means that you can add a virality coefficient. So if there's a big discrepancy, in the price they pay and the value they receive, you might have every single customer tells 20%, or like one customer refers 0.2 customers or 0.3 customers or something like that. In other words, you don't need to market at all. The business grows 30% a year compounding if that coefficient is 0.3%. But basically what I see with a lot of software founders, they think that this is going to carry them, like just this NPS, which I think is great. I think you should focus on this and not market it until this NPS score is really good. But you also need to market just to get the juice going. Okay, like I was talking to a software founder. They had raised about $6 or $7 million. He didn't want to really work with us because he thought a lot of marketers were kind of slimy and didn't really do a great job. And I think that's really true if you're talking about like a corporate marketer that's kind of more bureaucrat, more politician, where he's just going to put all these brochures. You don't really know if it's working or not. And, he's just going to kind of rub shoulders with like the corporate people of the company. We are performance marketers. We put dollars in, we try and get dollars out. We track every penny. You know exactly at the end of the month whether or not we're making you money or we're costing you money. You need somebody on your company who's going to basically just get you a whole bunch of customers so that you actually have feedback to iterate the product and improve this NPS score, okay? Because compounding, it's too slow. Like if you could have a really good product might have like a 20% virality coefficient. Well, if you get one customer a month, that might take 10 years for that thing to take off. Let me just jack a bunch of new leads and customers in your business, and now that 20% becomes really meaningful, right? It's kind of like the same thing with compounding interest with stocks. Like if you have like $100 a month to invest, you're not really going to make a lot of money investing. You have to focus on increasing your active income, okay? When you're starting a new business, you need to focus on acquiring your first 1,000 customers, something like that, to then have feedback to even know if you're doing a good job on this or not. And that will expose kind of where your NPS scores sit, okay? And then the other thing that you can do when you're with a more advanced CRM like HubSpot is you can track different cohorts. So you can basically make, let's say you're in a service business where it's a combination of product and service. You might notice that, hey, if I do an onboarding call, my NPS scores go way up. Okay. You also want to track activation points. Okay. You can do that like customer success, really sophisticated customer success people know that if you don't engineer those right type of wins in the first 7 to 30 days, it just drops. Like people just drop off. People make their human psychology is such that they're going to solidify that opinion about you within the first 7 days of working with you, and that's going to dictate the lens that they view the rest of your working experience through. Okay. So basically, like, with Facebook, the famous example is like if somebody could add 5 friends in the first 30 days, they would become a Facebook person, or they would drop forever. That's the crazy part about this is you need to front load those wins and engineer those wins as fast as possible. That's where something like a customer success manager can engineer those and make sure that the members are going through those activation points. They'll have a better experience. They'll have better NPS scores. Your LTV is going to skyrocket. Your referral rate's going to skyrocket. Your organic growth is going to skyrocket. And then your LTV might go from 15 grand to 40 grand. And then now you can very easily start spending more to acquire the customer, and you can scale further. And your rising cost to acquire the customer doesn't affect you as much. Okay, like I was listening to another example is I was listening to Grant Cardone. He says, I only focus on making more money. I don't focus on spending more money, because you can only go so low with cutting costs and spending. Like if I'm living in LA right now, like what's the least you can really spend is like a single guy, like $2,500 a month, like $3,500 a month. Like, I can tell you it's very, very expensive to live here in LA where I live, and versus the opportunity to make more money, it's exponential. You can make $1 million, $10 million a month. Okay. It's the same thing with paid advertising. Your cost to acquire the customer can only go so low, but your lifetime value can go exponentially higher. So focus on creating something that's so freaking good, nobody leaves, and you can be really sloppy with your marketing and still, because this compounding, this virality coefficient, it compounds for you. Advertising linear, it's actually diminishing, because as you acquire the customers, it gets worse over time. The compounding can fight against that. So it's totally healthy and normal if your cost to acquire customers rise at scale. You just need to have a product that's so good that people don't leave after that. So that's pretty much guys, I've been in paid advertising. It's 2024 at the time of this recording. I started my journey in 2018. It's been 6 years, millions of dollars in advertising spend. We're spending 12 grand a day right now. That is everything I've ever learned about marketing and growing businesses. And, hopefully you guys found this valuable. I hope it was valuable. I actually think this is one of the best videos that we've ever had. We're just pulling back the curtains. If you or somebody has a business, you're doing more than 7 figures per year, and you want to do a free consultation with me or my team, where you can review your ads, your sales process, your CRM, fill out your information below. Maybe you have like a Facebook ads that's working really well for you, and you want us to help add in like a LinkedIn ads or Google ads or something like that, and add another channel to take away from your one channel risk and diversify your traffic if there's risk of an ad account ban or something like that. If you're doing less than 7 figures per year, we don't typically work with those businesses, but what we can do is I'll just help you out for free. What I'm going to start doing is I'm going to actually have people that are less than $1 million. I'll coach you for free, and then I'm going to post it on my YouTube channels, like basically like breaking down a student's ad account or something like that. So fill out your contact information below. Tell me where you are with your business revenue wise, and somebody on my team will reach out if it makes sense. But anyway, I hope this was helpful. DM me if you have any questions. Tell me what you liked about the video. Tell me what you hated about it. Hope you're having a good day, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks. Bye.